The Bronx is crushed. What you see there is like garbage in the corner, fiends on the street, people struggling. I see the beauty in that.
Today in studio on the Real Mentors podcast, I'm honored to welcome a leader whose work centers on community, capacity building, and justice for young people. She serves as the executive director of Community Connections for Youth. It's a Bronx-based nonprofit focusing on creating community-driven alternatives to incarceration and supporting youth and families in powerful, transformative ways. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Belinda Ramos.
This is really where I'm from. It's in these places too that like really beautiful things come out of it, right? Like you see the good that comes out of, these places at the lowest places, a block, a hood, you know what I mean? A place that holds little treasure to the powers of the world that offers riches and says, this is what meaning is. This is what it means to have made it.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors podcast. I'm your host, Sean Martin. As always, REAL stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. And today in studio on the Real Mentors podcast, I'm honored to welcome a leader whose work centers on community, capacity building, and justice for young people. She serves as the executive director of Community Connections for Youth. It's a Bronx-based nonprofit focusing on creating community-driven alternatives to incarceration and supporting youth and families in powerful, transformative ways. With a background in psychology, training, and advocacy, she brings deep insight into systems change, restorative support, and community empowerment. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Belinda Ramos.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Well, I'm happy to be here with you
today. Good. She might be a little nervous. We got a first-time podcaster, but her mission is powerful. And I told her off camera, you're the first person I've met via LinkedIn to invite on the show. So it's a bunch of firsts going on right here. So we'll figure it out. Now, I know we were chatting a little bit offline. I'm like, where do you live? And you're living here in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So not too far of a commute, thankfully.
Yeah.
But you're originally from Newburgh.
I'm originally from Newburgh, New York. Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that. For anybody who doesn't know about Newburgh.
Wow.
I called it the Bronx with trees.
You're the first person when we were talking about it, like the first person to acknowledge like just the truth about the hardship of Newburgh. Yeah. And even more so, like I grew up in Newburgh in the 80s,
Yeah.
So it was like
before it was popular to be Latino.
Yeah, exactly. And actually it was just a lot of runaways from the city. People were like, I got this blue collar money and, I think I could buy a house for my family and I can get out of here. Right. So everybody up there was like these transplants and they were trying to start like new community. So being Puerto Rican, it was like a heavy Puerto Rican community that I grew up in. And the places that you felt safe in, because, racism is, to think that New York City is not have plenty of its own races is a disconnection from the reality. But up there, I think that there was this impression that, to be up there would be better. And in a lot of ways it was, you got property, but they had kids in the basement who had a second language and were like, you're slowing down the classroom. So we're going to put you guys down here. So it was that type shit that was going on. Wow. You know what I mean? So all that to say is that what happened was, which is really to me like a picture of like times during like the 60s and the civil rights movements, is that the church became a place of significance for people who are marginalized. It wasn't the mechanics we see now. Right. So those mechanics of then was like, this is a space for me to be among my people, but also to have the respect and not like be put under by, the power of whiteness in upstate.
I think it is the sense of community.
Exactly.
And that's interesting. I had goosebumps, and I still do under this jacket, not just because it's chilly in here, but more importantly because it hit a nerve when you said that you moved up to Newburgh to find a better life. So the irony is blue-collar workers and people that are just getting by, you're leaving all the creature comforts of the city to go get a home, right? The American dream. But then when you get there, you're still putting in way too many hours. You've got new expenses you didn't factor in, so you're working even harder. Maybe mom has to go to work too. And you know who suffers in the end? The kids.
Truth.
Because that community that you have by being in a big city or having neighbors in a building now becomes the church.
Exactly.
So it's amazing how people will always move on to something better and then find struggles, but then most importantly, find community out of it as well.
Exactly.
So Newburgh is the hood. For anybody who doesn't know, it's about, I'm gonna say 45 minutes north of the Bronx with a little bit of traffic.
Yeah.
And it is actually oftentimes, I think in the top 5 worst places to live in New York State.
Yeah.
Per capita.
It's rough, you know, it's rough. I grew up on Bencard, moved over to Kenny Apartments, so I'm just throwing out those references just for, a quick G check, that I'm not full of it, but that, this is really where I'm from. But, it's also, I'm of the belief, right? Like it's in these places too that like really beautiful things come out of it, right? Like, I'm a Christian, and I use the term lightly because it comes with a lot of predefinitions for people.
Yep.
But I know that it's more of a paradigm of a parable and metaphor and belief. I do believe Jesus Christ is who he says he is, but I think more than anything is like I see this picture of like when they said, "What good thing could come, out of Nazareth?" It's like, well, what good thing can come out of Newburgh, and what good thing can come out of the Bronx? Well, to me, this redemptive creature, person, son of God, comes out of the lowest of places, a block, a hood, you know what I mean? A place that, holds little treasure to the powers of the world that offers riches and says, this is what meaning is. This is what it means to have made it. It's like, it's good to you see the good that comes out of these places. And so a lot of these places are crushed. They're crushed. The Bronx is crushed. Everything is you see there is like garbage in the corner, fiends on the street, people struggling, houses with X's on their doors, in Newburgh, abandoned, foreclosed. You see a lot of this, kids on the street looking around, where's the parent? Like that's what I saw. And you still see now. So I think, from those places, it's like, I have, I see the beauty in that. You know what I mean? Like, I see the struggle. It's not like I'm not putting, daffodils on the experience.
It's like J. Cole says, right? It's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success.
Exactly.
And it's a perspective shift that we've only blessed enough to see, sis, because we've made it out.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that struggle, it is hard to see it for any value. I always tell people that have come from, humble beginnings and trauma and chaos, that it built the resilience for them to then succeed later in life. But oftentimes, it first leads to us trying to destroy ourselves.
Yeah.
It leads to us trying to purge ourselves of these feelings of not knowing or not feeling like enough. And we end up doing dumb shit and following, ill-gotten path to wealth or to fame or to whatever it is that we feel is going to make us good or feel whole. And it's the trappings. And you mentioned faith, and I know how important that is to you. Is it something that you found? Now, you mentioned Christian, which is a very general term, and I even joke, I've been to church, and they jokingly say it's like church light. And the reason that it resonates with me as opposed to a religion is because, in my humble opinion, religion's been corrupted over time. It's been monetized. And Christianity, in its purest sense, is simply a teaching of how to live.
Exactly.
And it resonates very much so with me. I always say, if I had to choose a religion and a gun was to my head, it would be Buddhism. And Christianity is like right there.
I hear that.
Because, the Buddhist principle states that God is within us. So God is our highest self. God is us, or the death of Christ, as I understand it, is the shedding of one's ego. And that is just as beautiful to me as what you may believe. It doesn't, maybe it doesn't seep into my life as much. But again, I've given it meaning, I've given it purpose. And I think faith is one of the most unexplored avenues for people to quiet that inner voice that says they're not enough. It's almost like the letting go of that voice that tries to keep you safe and keep you in a space that is very, very familiar. So even in Newburgh, right? We do the familiar thing. We stay with the people we know, the things we know, the places we know because they're familiar. But you took a leap of faith and you went away to school and you decided you weren't going back to Newburgh. How did that decision come about? And how important was it for you to escape that environment, for you to make the progress you needed to in your own life?
Well, I was young when I left Newburgh, and life was happening. So I don't know how much decision making I was making. Life was changing on me. My mother died. I ended up moving with an aunt across the river. My dad died 3 years later. So, I had to hang on to something. And that something was, I was in school, teachers would be like, wow, you're smart, and I had a very hungry mind. I like to read a lot. And I was in a very, very, my aunt that ended up raising me I was in a very, very strict home. Like, not only was it Pentecostal, so for all the in-betweens of that people understand, but also like she was, like she was a lot older. And so she had like a lot of rules. So I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends. I had to come straight home.
It was old school as old school can be.
Yeah, and nobody was managing, the fact that I had become an orphan. Right. So I was in a box in my room. I say like a prison, but I don't want to minimize what that is. But I was encased, right. And being encased, I needed to find a hungry mind, a creative person, and only could go to church. I needed to redefine my space. So in that, I dug into a lot of things. I started drawing. I started writing books. I was like, you
started letting those thoughts and those feelings out onto paper or out in reading.
Just somewhere.
So you just knew something was like, I gotta be bigger than this space.
Exactly.
And you used the physical word of the box. And you mentioned prison. Many of us are in a prison of our own making. So I always use the word. It's not just the walls that society says you are relegated to for committing a crime. We do it to ourselves. But you knew, and you had this seed planted in you that leads you to go to school. Yes. You find your way out of Newburgh. When do you start your career in service or helping others, and in particular, incarceration? Because I know this hits close to home for you.
Yes. So my brother was the last day I saw my brother was the day my mother died. I was 9 going on 10. He was turning 16. He was in a group home. He was in detention. And when she died, I was home that weekend. I was already living with my aunt. So I came home that weekend. It was like a long weekend. We get the news she passed away. We go to the hospital. They take us to the morgue. And my brother comes in with whatever counselor, whoever, the residential aide that brought him in, comes in. We see our mother. Go into the waiting area. He's like 6 seats away from me, crying. I'm 9. He's older. I want to comfort him. They take him away, and I didn't see him again, until he was 33 years old. So I was estranged from him for, 15 years. So so part of that was I was an orphan with only one living blood, within my nuclear family relative. And I felt like everything in my life was about kind of finding him, like it felt like I had survivor's guilt because like I had gotten this chance, but he landed in the system. Mm-hmm. And, it doesn't go without saying the fact that he was dark. He's a black boy, he was a black Puerto Rican boy in the hood. He got caught up in what black boys from the hood get swept up in, all of it, and became, part of the system. But because I was so young, my dad, we didn't have the same dad. My dad had adopted him. And so there was a lot of friction between this black boy and the white side of my Puerto Rican family. He was he was a scapegoat. He was a problem. And he was out the way now.
Black sheep, literally and figuratively.
Literally.
Yeah.
So I felt like, first of all, these people don't understand me. We go to the same church and serve the same God, but it's not the same God. Right. So I set on a quest almost like to just, I don't know, I just felt like, you know what? I can't meet him, I can't find him, but I started going in college, volunteering on Tuesday nights. They used to have a group, to take out people to go to the juvenile detention center. These kids were like really locked up, like really behind bars, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, from there, I just felt like, you know what, if I can't give this to my brother, this love to my brother, I could give this love and this attention to these kids that are here.
Right, who share very similar stories and got lost in very similar ways.
Yeah. And I really didn't have what I know now then. All I had was my experience. I didn't have social media. Social media creates a cloud of information. You get to come close to things that maybe you're battling by yourself. There was none of that.
Right.
So all I had was just my experience visiting kids and just, being there and hearing wild stories from them, like, hey, this is what we do with our shoelaces if we want to kill ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we chip a toilet bowl and what we, I was learning all these things. And, there was one kid in particular that I started writing. Mm-hmm. And, he was like 14 years old. And I'm like, he's grown in every way except emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Right.
So it's like his experiences were the experiences of a grown man, but who he was a child. Mm. And so like that's the thing about all of this, right? Like it's like I could see that then, and fast forward, I was given language to understand really what that was about. I was given an understanding of like why as a society we did this to him. We created this in him,
Now this is because of the degree, because of the education and the knowledge.
Yeah.
And now you have not only the ability to be in front of them and understand this textbook language applied to real life, but more importantly, you're carrying a lot of the learned experience of having grown up with that boy and the parallels between your own brother. And that's where the compassion comes in versus someone who grows up in the suburbs and wants to do God's work. And I commend them for it, but it's still a different experience for both players involved because they're not coming from a place of, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I come from that same place.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm on the mission I'm on, because I know that my story will resonate with so many people. If I didn't include the I went to prison part, people wouldn't be listening as intently.
Right.
And I eliminated that at the beginning of this journey, and people weren't listening as intently because they want to see that you fell on your face and you redeemed yourself.
Yeah.
So your goal is to help some of these young men and women redeem themselves.
Yeah.
And you're doing this now through the work here in the South Bronx. And tell us a little bit more about the community connections for youth.
Another providential experience, I had gotten let go from a job. I was like, really like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I was doing like side work for years through a research foundation, Columbia University, and it was all built around like parents with children with special needs and the parents becoming the change agents for other parents, which, back in, when I got my graduate degree, it was like the power was in the hands of the therapist. Like you, any problem you had, you went to the therapist, and second in command was like, whoever your spiritual leader was. So it's like, it really reserved it for this idea of like, I know what you got going on, and I have the prescription for that. Whether it's through back then like CBT was kind of newer, rational emotive therapy. It was like all these head-led ideas of healing people. But what I saw was like, man, dag, like there's a place for like the abuelita or the titi that's not your titi, but that tells you about yourself or runs over to the appointment with you. Like, we grew up translating everything for our families, and like it took community and village to bring a normalcy to the everyday life. So I thought it was really, really cool. I was like, no, I'm about this. I think the practitioner can be anybody who cares.
Right.
And there's an arc to that. So when I had left the job, when I got let go from that job, I heard about community connections. It was so weird because like I knew people over there and I really didn't even know about the work. But all of a sudden, they hired me on because I was doing training and developing curriculum on this other project. But then also like I had this lived experience personally, and I had a bigger motive that it wasn't just my lived experience, but like my worldview that was based, on who God is with. And like based on everything I was seeing, I'm like, man, like Jesus was like, the least of these is the most. The thing that you reject is what I accept. It was like this real, like, yes, let's live. I'm going to have an opportunity to lift this up in a way that like makes practical sense. It's not a preaching. It's not me sharing the gospel. It's not none of that. It's a demonstration of who whose team God is on, which is the orphan and the widow, the foreigner, the oppressed, the prisoner, and I'm like, here I get a chance to pull all that together. That was healing for me. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I was on my face during that time in life. Things were not going well for me. I was lost and I had thrown everything, not metaphorically, literally in a garbage can, just 5-6 months before. So
you had kind of given up?
I had given up.
And then you find this opportunity.
Boom.
For God to use you, as you put it. And I see how important God and Christ is to you. But more simply put, giving is living.
Yes.
And it sounds so counterintuitive for someone who's struggling to be grateful or to be in gratitude or thankful for anything. But I'll tell you a practice that I had in prison, ironically enough, and I read it, I don't know where, but as soon as I would get up off the bunk and my feet would hit the floor, I am thankful for. And I would rifle off all the things, the people, the thoughts, the ideologies, the knowledge, and experiences that I was thankful for. And I started that shit in a prison cell.
That's so dope.
So there's no place that you can't find hope.
Yeah.
There's no place that you can't find gratitude. I wanted to circle back to your brother.
Yeah.
And what's his situation? How long was he away? Is he home? Were you able to integrate him into your story and helping others? Let's dive into how personal that was and how that worked out.
Well, he's doing great. And so when I found him at 33, like he was not, and that when you have like a lot of arrested development, and I don't mean that in a mental way. My brother's really smart and did a lot with his, time. He did a lot of short bits. So,
okay.
It wasn't like he
like
was
a career criminal, right?
Yeah,
Little
like
shit,
just
2 years
getting
here.
really caught up and blah, blah, blah. But
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and
I know. I got plenty of friends.
He was in a loop. He was in a loop that I would say in the last 5-6 years, he'd have to tell you what changed for him. I can't say, but
it has.
But it has, like.
And how old is he now?
55 years old now, and he's working for the Fortune Society. He's working, with the homeless population, like people needing housing, coming home, needing support. And he's like, Dad, like, I feel like I'm your colleague. I'm like, what do you mean you feel like you're my colleague? You are. Like, we're working in the same team. Like, we're in the same worlds, different organizations. So he's found, his ability to support and do for others, in his way, which is really, really amazing. I mean, it was not easy. When he first came home, I got that baptism because, families, it's like what you want to see. It's the whole mission now. Right. When somebody gets locked up is about, how do I get this person home? How do I get myself home? When it happens, it's lit day one, of course, right. But the life right after it is so hard.
The reality hits home.
It was even hard on my friends, like, so it took so much. So it took a lot of false starts for him.
Yeah.
We got estranged multiple times,
during the process.
Through the process, yeah. But now, like, that's my dog. Like, that's who I trust. I love him. I'm proud of him. I think he is one of the most amazing people I've ever known, will know. I'm glad that he's my brother. Like, I'm lucky. I'm always upping him. I'm like, he's so smart. He's so this, he's so that. And he's an amazing uncle to my son. He has things to offer that I cannot, So this is where we are today. This is, we are, being in the Bronx. He's in the Bronx now. He was living his whole life down on the Lower East Side for a long time. But, I'm really amazed at whatever he surrendered.
Yeah.
And how
and then he started becoming of service.
Yes.
And those two things go hand in hand. Once you can let go of your ego, you kill that ego.
Yeah.
You're actually coming to God.
Yeah.
Or the higher form of yourself. And I'm not trying to parallel. I'm not trying to get religious. I'm just saying those two things are very similar because you've given away control of you as this little speck of sand thinking you got all these things figured out, and you decided to instead stop asking what's in it for me and start asking how can I be of value to other people. So you've dedicated your life to this mission through work, but I want to know exactly how you help these young kids, these young men and women overcome these challenges. I want to know, some of the things that the the organization is able to do and provide them. And then I also want to know, or I want to drive home the point rather of your brother and all the years it took him to find this place that he's at now at the tender age of 55. I'm similar, I'm 47. I got released when I was 31, I think.
Okay.
And it took me a decade and a half to start to really realize the person that I could become. So what are some of the things the program does to support these incarcerated individuals and help them once they do get back to this harsh reality of being home from prison?
Yeah. So, the origins of the organization, it started this is our 16th year. Our founder, Reverend Ruben Austria, started it on this idea of mobilizing the community of, folks investing. If you invest in the hyperlocal community and the assets that are there, you're closest to, these young people and, solutions are being developed by those closest to the issue, right? So, from that started a program, like a demonstration, and saying like, hey, these kids that are like facing probation or in probation or like, being arrested. So there was like this partnership that started to form to say like, send them to us and we want to connect them to the opportunities that are in this neighborhood. And he started to train those organizations on alternatives to incarceration because especially when it came to like at the family court level with youth,
right.
there wasn't a lot built there in terms of diversion. So we were able to show like, it's a no-brainer. A lot of times these numbers just support what we know intuitively, what we see with our own eyes,
right.
that if you love a kid, you show up for them, good things are going to come out of that, and good things came out of that. Yeah. So fast forward 16 years later, we kind of went. When I started, we were doing a lot of training and technical assistance. So I've been working with credible messengers all this time, doing training, supporting them on how to support youth. When I came on as the executive director like 3 years ago, we're shifting. We're going to dig more into this community and do work and continue that work of that early, pipeline disruption. Mm-hmm. Because when pulling into what you were asking me about, like my brother and those experiences, I'm like, look what deeper system involvement puts on the back end for you in terms of your recovery from all of those things and those hurdles. Like just his damn ID getting lost over and over again because he was in a shelter wheel coming home. It got crazy. Like I'm watching this man who's like strong-minded, like being broken down and feeling ashamed that that's happening in front of me, his sister who's younger and now has to support him. Right. So that's a lot for a man. That's like, we have to understand these things. So we are like on the attack on the front end. The staff, that we have all been participants of our own program. Most of them, have been, I would say, I think it's like 80% of that staff.
Okay, so they know it. They've lived it. They've gone through all the BS.
They've gone through it, and this on the system side, but, on a personal level, right? So what we do is like, we either meet a parent who's got a kid facing probation or got arrested. That referral could come from probation. It could come from, a system office, a police, and we're on it. And what we focused on is not what they're focused on. We're focused on building relationship. We're focused on the connection. We're focused on like, hey, we're over here, come over here. We'll go with you to the court. If you got a court appointment, you're not in school. We run groups, transformative mentoring groups, and really just start to build with young people from jump, when we're able to make that connection, because there is readiness. There is, sometimes people are just like, man, I love this life. I love this shit is making me feel great. What do you got to do? What are you going to give me $25 stipend to do what? Like I make money hand over fist. I don't need you. Okay, but we're here, and when the rubber meets the road and you have to reckon, we'll be there for you too. Like this is, we understand that, but we are showing up for families in that way. We have an office in the courthouse. We have a contract with the city. We have a parent support program. So these probation officers allow us to make connections with the families, to show up to them. We have the judges know, a number of our staff. So we're building like a brokerage, in the community by community members who understand. So we have the reputation, of doing the work. Because, if you are who you say you are, everybody will know that. That's trust. So, you know,
You got the
we
track
have to
record.
we have to stand in that truth. So we really, you know, we lean on that level of having to have that kind of integrity, you know, with that. Young people, you know, we have several programs. We just started a new one where, you know, we're building them. It's about, you know, you're trying to help young people self-actualize. You know, that's a freedom that you help somebody discover so that they are completely self-possessed. You know, that you can make decisions because you understand that life presents you with options. First option is, who do you want to be? Like, how do you want to do this? Like, you want to get this filthy or you want to get this clean? Like, you want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I did that shit and I did it in a way where I could stand proud,
right.
or I'm doing this in a way that harms others, and I'm doing this in a way that is like dismissive of my true beauty, you know, like my true wonder. So we help young people go into that self-discovery, and in that, like, expose them to things that they might not have normally been exposed to. Like, you don't go to school to learn about your emotions. You should.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go to school to learn about navigating conflict. You should.
Right.
But that's not what schools are set up to do. So it takes community programs and people, and like a lot of adults are not, they're in their predicaments with their children or relationship because there's a lack of education on the things that have to do with your whole cube. Like, you know what I mean? Like your whole shit, you know?
Right.
Like,
It's a process.
you don't have anything out there supporting those mechanics. So we build a space to do that. And I'm being heady about this. So I'm like, I understand, like, I'm coming at this from like education, a lot of thought, but the staff are coming at this from just like, they keep it simple. So they'll put workshops and things together and experiences together that are really like just a very natural healing. Like, we're focused on our healing.
What people don't realize is the depth of which we're emotionally stunted when we come from trauma and chaos.
Right.
It took me going to prison and all the workshops they presented in anger management to learn about feelings. Now, I'm college educated, I'm making 6 figures at the time, I'm running a gun in the streets, I'm a pretty capable human being, but I did not know how to process feelings. And they were just the anger, the resentment, the disappointment, all led to anger. Like a freight train.
Yeah.
And I think so many young men and young women who come from poverty, who come from chaos, who come from broken homes, dysfunction, they're so quick to jump to anger. And that's why you see us, in addition to obviously the systematic problems and racism, being jailed at numbers that are astronomical. Correct. Because of the fact that we don't have the internal tools. So programs like this are absolutely essential. And I know that programs like this, unfortunately, are also under fire these days. Can you please tell our audience a little bit more about the program, how they can find out more about it, and if they'd like to help, donate, or anything of that nature, even their time, how could they go about and do that?
Yes, so our organization is Community Connections for Youth. We are on 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. The first thing I want to say is that anybody who's in this community who needs support, we are there for you. We're office hours 9 to 5. You can roll up on us and come talk to us. We lean heavily on partnership and the support of others. So, we're no different than any nonprofit. For those that want to partner with us, support us. We have a website, www.cc-fy.org. We're also on social media, Instagram, CC4Y. I'm on LinkedIn, Belinda Ramos. Community Connections for Youth is on LinkedIn. You can come close to our work through these means. You can come to our events through, these means. But mostly, also know that we are here. We are a little hidden gem, on the 7th floor, that is really ready to just, come in where people, at the moment where people tend to run away. So.
Well, I want to thank you, Belinda, for coming on today. I want to thank you for the work that you do, sharing your heart, sharing your story today. Putting Newburgh on the map for the first time on our show after like 70 episodes. We finally got a Newburghian.
You feel like that sounds so prestigious.
She's Newburghian. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll have all of Belinda and her organization's information in the bio. As always, thanks for tuning in to the Real Mentors podcast, and let's get it.